Are we back? I think we're back. Sorry about
I
that,
do not
folks.
know.
I'm turning down the video quality a bit, just in case. Um, it appears that we had a little bit of a internet hiccup on my end, so we'll continue. I'll leave it up in two parts. If it's got problems on YouTube, I'll just upload the video directly. So apologies for that. So, but just in case, I am dipping the video quality down to 720p. So, where were we? Anime, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing that another thing that just sort of discouraged me from watching ReZero was that in Isekai Quartet they sort of like between seasons they will update the character relationships based on what's going on in the main series, and so between season 2 of Isekai Quartet and I think it's season 2 of Isekai Quartet and the movie, and it's sort of lampshaded as being an inexplicable change in attitudes. Um, the uh, the blonde drill hair girl starts being incredibly clingy with Subaru, but in addition to this, basically loses her entire personality. And she was a very entertaining character on Isekai Quartet before, but she's just a simp after that point.
Right. So, minor spoilers for an upcoming arc. There is a witch that can eat the names of someone, and if they do that, they uh, they make them disappear effectively from the memories and lives of everyone around them, and it sticks them with their original personality gone. And I don't know if they how or if they'll resolve this by getting their memories back or something. But that's still an ongoing plot point that is a thing that's happening, and it's happened to a few characters that are important to Subaru.
Right. Well, I don't know if that's what's operative here because I was using she loses her entire personality as a more or less a figurative thing, but definitely she goes from being incredibly cutting to everybody around her to basically doing nothing but clinging on to Subaru and
Oh,
letting him make all the decisions.
right, I know that character. That's because of an event, the big emotional payoff event where they have their come together moment at the end of the latest season that just came out, where they settle their differences and you figure out why she's so abrasive towards everyone and especially Subaru, and they get over that and work through
That
that.
was why I liked her.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, it's probably different in the main series because Isekai Quartet is fundamentally a gag show, so it's always played
yeah,
for laughs. But basically, she doesn't really have any character traits other than that because the show's a caricature. And when she goes to clinging on to Subaru, she basically becomes worthless as a character.
yeah. Because of events that happen in the story, she becomes literally reliant on Subaru. Not to do anything, just she needs him to exist for physical reasons. So this naturally leads to her becoming more attached as a character as well.
Yeah, but it didn't seem like it seemed like there was no interesting character dynamic there whatsoever. It's just like, oh well, I mean, she's basically literally clinging to him all the time, and he seems to show her a disproportionate amount of affection compared to what he shows to the girl who the only girl who actually professes her love for him.
Yeah, it's if you ever do watch the series, you'll understand why. But it's not something I want to spoil in case you do decide to turn it on one day
I
to go
understand
support.
Subaru is a tool.
Yeah, the whole story is Subaru slowly working towards becoming less of a tool and more of a genuine person.
Does this involve at any point stopping being a relentless, disgusting simp for Emilia who hasn't noticed his existence yet?
No, it's part of the story now that that is very odd, and every character notices it, and it's hinting that Amelia has a connection to bringing Subaru into that world to begin with, because and she doesn't know it yet either, and some connection to one of the witches, the big
So
scary one.
so is it sort of implied that he's got some kind of like magically induced fascination with her or something?
Yeah, it seems like they're going the route of the reason he got so infatuated with her the way he did is specifically because he was compelled to.
But you know that they're going to go the route in the end that he doesn't care and he actually says he's in love with her.
They try to push something like that now in the latest season, but it even then it feels hollow when they do it at the end, and it's just like him deciding to be a genuine friend to Amelia instead of her simp. But he's
I
still
see.
not confessed any type of uh, real love or affection for her. Just decided to be her friend instead of her simp. He says words like love, but he doesn't actually mean them. What he means is friend. He just doesn't know it yet. So yeah, that's a lot of time on a show that you haven't watched, and it's been a while since I watched, and I've already talked at length about
I
before.
just everything about it just sounds so repellent though. Like I just don't want to.
Yeah, if you're not interested in watching a character become human from being an autistic slob,
Well, the thing is that if that was all it was, then I might be interested. But the fact is that it's not. The show is not about that until it starts being about that. Up until that point, you have to watch him be an autistic slob for an extended period of time.
yeah, and that is painful to go through with it. And during the first season, I didn't like it either because I think they spend way too long with him in that state. And while it's effective at getting you invested in seeing him become a better person over the course of the show, and really hits the moments when he actually seems to learn a lesson, and really emphasizes the frustration when he screws up and falls back into his own habits, that still means you got to sit through it at the beginning to get through it, and that's not a selling point for a show. There has to have been a better way to do that.
I feel like the pilot was especially bad. Like the thing, I watched the pilot, the like the hour-long pilot that they did, and it sort of like demotivated me from watching it. Not it's not just that I cringed constantly because the dialogue was so bad, but there were like elements in it that were like, oh well, this show could be really really interesting. But then they would open their mouths again. I'd be like,
Yeah,
oh right.
I don't know if this is also at play in the light novel, but early on the writing is very robotic as well, and it gets better, much better,
Well,
but
it
it
was like I wouldn't have had the way of describing it back then, but it seemed like two chatbots talking to each other, him and Amelia.
yeah, and they fix that later, but it takes them way too long to do it. I don't know if this was a problem with the original writing for the intro arcs and the author was still finding his feet or what, or if this was just a thing with the anime crew. Who knows? But it is clearly something they took a while to grow into, whoever's fault it was. And you do have to suffer through watching a bunch of robots talk at each other and still process what the heck they were talking about to get anything out of the show later. So
Yeah,
yeah,
well, I guess I just don't understand how like because it was not a matter of oh well this show was a sleeper hit that started to emerge later. No, this show was engaged with fanaticism right out of the gate by the bulk of the fandom.
yeah. I don't know. When all we had was that those initial seasons, I was in the camp with you that it was an overhyped mess that I couldn't understand why people were so enamored with. But but they did pull it out, I think. Now the rest, these same people that were simping for it earlier, now hating on its later bits that I like. Maybe these people really just can relate to autistic tards being autistic tards, and
This is why they all like Denji.
yeah, there may be something to that argument.
I don't know, I guess it's that they're the TikTok generation, right?
Yeah, like
They can't focus on any plot arc longer than 1 minute.
I seeing a character grow out of that can have good moments for you, and it can feel good to watch a character not be that anymore because you're supposed to stop being on an autistic target at some point. You have to grow up and get a job and do something with your life, and I guess these people just don't want to. I guess they're also the type of people that will nonstop talk about media on the internet and not take a break occasionally to go to the office. So there's that.
Yeah, I guess it's not an accurate or fair way of framing it, but I tend to sort of mentally uh, group these people together as people who probably think the MCU is cool.
Yeah, one or two good movies that were the early ones, and after that, all downhill. Even then, in retrospect, they were good. They weren't that good.
Well, the thing is that they weren't like era defining or anything like that. They were just like, oh well, this is a decent Hollywood superhero movie insofar as Hollywood superhero movies go. Like, I don't think that there has been, like, in my personal opinion and my experience of the world as far as entertainment goes, there simply hasn't been anything that is like the Lord of the Rings trilogy of films that becomes a phenomenon on that scale.
Yeah,
And every attempt to make one has been a complete catastrophe, like new Star Wars, for instance.
yeah. It's one of those things where I don't think you can go in with the objective of I want to make the next MCU. I want to make the next Lord of the Rings. You're not gonna do that.
Well, the
If
thing is that every MCU movie was made like that.
yeah, I meant to say Lord of the Rings, but
Well, the thing is that when what they explicitly said, like you can see it in the commentaries and whatnot, is that their objective was to make a series of movies that they thought Tolkien would be proud of.
yeah,
Like they didn't try and make it for quote modern audiences unquote or anything like that.
yeah, and it helped that from the get go, all the actors knew they were in this for the long haul together, so they all got to know each other really well. And they all, if you watch the bonus features on the DVDs, you could get the impression that the actors understood the significance of Lord of the Rings to a lot of people and wanted to do it right. And yeah, they had a genuine passion or grew a genuine passion for the product they were putting out that you can't replicate just because you want something like what they had. That's either genuine or it's not. Its entire value is in its authenticity as something these uh, people really had passion for.
Uh, dead air. Dead
Hang on,
air.
hang on. I took sustaining potions off my bar. I gotta find them. Oh, okay. There we go. I had to fix that. Right. So that's a lot of tangenting from where do we start? Chainsaw Man. There was another anime I was going to talk about. So let's jump on that one. I have gotten caught up with My Hero Academia. So
I am not caught up. I have not watched any of the current season. I stopped watching in the middle of what's the guy with the hands on his face?
Shigaraki.
Yeah, I stopped in the middle of Shigaraki's sort of origin arc story, and because I don't like him as a villain. Like he's just not at all interesting to me, and so I just got bored because it's like, yeah, but I don't care about this guy, so I don't really want to watch this stuff giving me deep backstory on him.
I didn't have the same type of negative reaction to him that you did. So
I didn't have a negative reaction to him. I didn't have any reaction to him.
yeah, I
He was
could
just totally non-compelling to me.
I could take or leave him as the villain they picked because this type of story needs a villain. Uh, and knowing more about your villain is generally good. I don't have too strong. If I was younger and this was the first time I was seeing, a super tragic backstory like his, maybe it would have a bit more impact.
Well, I didn't get to the point that it was super tragic. Like I don't know anything about it because I got so bored on the run up to it. So I don't actually know what his super tragic backstory is because to me, as a villain, like I'm fine. I was fine with like Overhaul, for instance, because he had a goal that he wanted to achieve, and like One for All, or I can't remember which one is the bad guy. The sort of like the mastermind type bad guy. Well, I mean, at least he's got sort of a certain amount of villainous grandeur, but the the actual bad guy they chose to me is just the villain version of Denji.
Yeah. So
He's just a man child.
he is. What's a good way to put this without spoiling it? That's incredibly obvious. Um, the story has made it very explicit that Shigaraki, while he is screwed up in the head from his terrible life that he's been led to have, he is little more than a vessel for one or all for one to act through. And that's the point of his character is to be a vessel in more ways than one for all for one and the way he wanted to shape the world. And so Shigaraki's character is only important of they because they needed a character for All for One to act through since he's currently stuck and he's in prison I think currently and
Well,
they
even if
needed a
he
way to
wasn't,
tie.
he's kind of almost dead, isn't he?
Yeah, he's on life support and he's stuck at the bottom of a prison somewhere tied to a chair. Um and there's they needed a way to tie him to Deku to give Deku a bit more personal stakes, and Shigaraki is how they do that. Um, I don't think it's perfect. It's not the best execution of this. I'm not sure how you would do it better in this type of story. Well, I know how one way you would do it better is attach Shigaraki earlier in the story to Deku, just by altering
Yeah,
the
I
timing.
think that there are basically two approaches. Either you introduce him later, or you introduce him earlier and in a meaningful way. Because I think the part of the problem with him is it's like the ReZero problem again, right?
Hmm.
You spend so much time with him, and that time is meaningless because he's just nothing but a man child the entire time. Like it's a long road until they do his tragic backstory. If they led with his tragic backstory, so I didn't have time to get sick of him, maybe that wouldn't be such a problem. But you have to spend so much time with this guy who's just basically a ranting man child.
Yeah,
Like either he's just a vessel and you don't need to see so much of him from so early on in the story, or he has meaning and you need to actually develop that meaning a lot earlier than they did.
yeah. If they'd introduced him and made clear his role and connections in the story earlier, they could have just got away with instead of just finally showing all that stuff they've been alluding to. And while they do mention that he had a messed up backstory, that's as far as they get. It's like the author hadn't nailed down exactly what he wanted Shigaraki to be until he got to this point in the manga. Is the impression I get, and it works well enough. It's not like I said, it's not the best execution of this type of villain that I've seen, but I think it's passable. It works. It works once it's all put together and out there, and it doesn't take that long to get through his story. And as for the other villains, they really needed some time to characterize them because a lot of them just didn't have anything.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the some of them were just a lot more expressive than others.
Yeah.
Like there are a couple there who are basically filler mooks for most of the story. Like the only one that people remember is the crazy blood girl.
Yeah. The
because her character and the way her character conducts herself is so expressive that you don't need to tell the story.
oh, we got a rare spawn. Yeah, I actually don't like Toga.
Well, it's not a matter of whether you like her or not necessarily, so much as that her character is part of the performance, which is not true of the others.
Yeah, and I think the exploring Toga doesn't give me the same kind of oh, that's interesting as some of the other characters do. Specifically, Toga's the one member of the League of Villains I have a real big bone to pick with because I just don't like seeing her on screen. I don't like exploring her and her backstory and her characterization because she
Well,
is
she's one I think that her backstory doesn't actually matter.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
because, like I said, her character is in the performance. You don't really need to go into any great depth there because you can tell the sort of person she is based on the way she acts. And the fact that that's not true of the others is the problem with them not getting their backstory earlier.
yeah. So the thing with Toga specifically is she is a little too mentally deviant, and the story goes out of its way to explain this from a normal human to understand what an average person would think about things or how to react to things as a normal person because her quirk has just messed her up so much it screws with her head so she doesn't think like a normal person so going every time you go into detail with Toga it's impossible to relate to it because you're trying to put me in the perspective of somebody who basically isn't
Well,
human or is
that's a theme. That's a theme though within there. Is like, oh well, these quirks create people that are not like real people. They create people who are not normal. This is why you can't give people power because it warps them if they have the ability to do things they shouldn't be able to do. That's like one of the themes of the story is that very thing. Like that's the reason she gets along with the guy who can double himself or
now
whatever it is.
on the opposite end. I'm really glad they went into Twice's backstory because he has a genuinely interesting character arc.
But the thing is that it is the same story, just executed better.
Yeah, Twice Twice is still his powers did mess him up, but he's still human and still has the ability to connect to other people and can still
Well, that's because Twice is a human. Twice is a person, an individual, whereas Toga's not. Toga is everybody she's ever eaten the blood off.
yeah. So so yeah, they spend a good amount of time on Twice. Uh and his power is so central to the way the League of Villains has been operating that getting to know Twice because he's always around and always doing stuff is really helpful.
But like I feel like he is the Toga that is executed correctly because he's another character who, while getting to know him through his backstory is good and important to the plot, he's also someone whose performance carries a lot of his character.
Yeah, he's very animated,
And
and
if you compare that to like Darby or that green guy that looks like a turtle
yeah,
or whatever.
I'm not sure what Spinner's deal is. He's a gecko actually, but I had to go look it up.
But like they don't have any personality whatsoever in their performance. Their performances are completely flat, whether purposeful or not.
Yeah, Dobby is there for the sake of the story later that I won't spoil, but he's part of the meta narrative going on. Spinner, I don't know what the heck they're doing with him. Spinner just kind of seems to
I
be a
did
dude.
I read a fan fiction once on a whim. And Spinner in that fan fiction was written essentially as an incredibly naive um fanboy of the hero killer who's basically being taken for a ride and gradually getting his even such ideals as he had ruined by the fact that he's too stupid to understand that he's being screwed with, basically.
Yeah, and I could see something like that as interesting. As far as the actual stories going, though, we just don't. Spinner doesn't have a strong personality at all. His character is, despite being a lizard, a giant lizard man with a ridiculous sword, he just doesn't have any kind of
He has no impact on the story at all.
Yeah, and he has no
His
impact
presence
on.
does not change anything.
Yeah, he doesn't have any kind of personality to make him interesting on his own. He doesn't
If he
have.
was not present, it would not change any scenes that he is in.
Yeah. In the anime, they find a way to use him as a blank point of view for a lot of the stuff that happens in the villain arc. They'll focus the camera on Spinner's thoughts sometimes because he's the most normal, despite being a lizard man, of all the League of Villains. Because his power is just he looks like a gecko. I don't know what else it gives him the ability to do. If that heightens his ability to do crap, maybe it says so in the notes in the manga or the character material. But he's just a really athletic dude that looks like a gecko, and so he doesn't have the same kind of twisted uh, perception as his coworkers. He's still messed up and he's got bad ideas about the world, obviously. But you can see how, and you can even see how they got there. But he's just kind of normy, and just
Yeah,
the
I suppose that's why I found the fan fiction incarnation of him quite believable, because the way he differed from the other characters was that he wasn't screwed up, and that he's basically like the villainized version of being woke. Like, he's just been completely consumed by an ideology that tells him that, oh well, this is what needs to be done, and I need to do it even if I have to do bad things.
yeah, he's he's like somebody that faced if there was still actual discrimination on the level people like to pretend there is. If he faced that and got jaded by it and decided to burn it all down, like you can see how somebody would get to that point. They're still wrong, but that's also a really basic motivation. Like, oh, somebody did me dirty. I'm just gonna burn it all down.
Well, it's not outside the range of human experience.
Yeah, but it's totally believable, and you can follow that at least. But yeah, Spinner, they needed to do something with him, and they, despite having this big villain arc where they go through and they give a lot of the characters a whole lot of detail, Spinner gets maybe touched on for a little tiny bit, and they move right along because they
I have to admit, I when he first appeared, I thought that he was going to be like a one-shot mook that never appeared again.
yeah,
Because, oh, this is, and then when I realized he wasn't, I thought he was going to be like Bebop and Rocksteady to Shredder.
yeah,
Like, he's just the guy who's always there and gets asked to do all the bitch work.
like him and Mr. Compress show up and get beaten before the heroes get to the real uh heavy hitters on the League of Villains.
Yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, that's not where they're going with him. They're trying to treat him like he's going to become a character, but at this point,
Yeah,
they've had plenty of time and they just ain't done very much with him yet.
yeah. Like, I mean, I wonder if they're showing that if they're not developing him because they don't want to be forced to demonstrate his level of commitment to villainy too early on,
Yeah,
because they want him to have a change in point of view because of something that happens.
yeah,
Because if he was already like in for a penny, in for a pound, then they can't really change his point of view. Like, there's nobody in with the League of Villains who can now turncoat on them,
yeah.
apart from him, because he has no personality yet.
Especially now with events in the story, stuff has escalated because we moved the meta arc forward and actually connected all the stray plots with the latest season.
Oh, so
Um,
you actually know why Darby's there now.
yeah, you know why Dobby's there. He's a huge key to uh one character in particular and the meta arc as a whole. He's the catalyst for finally moving things forward and pushing the themes that the author was clearly trying to set up early and took forever to finally get around to. Telling you too much about it will spoil it, but yeah, Dobby actually has significance, and the current episodes actually are all about Dobby's past. I can, excuse me, I can forgive the way they held on Dobby despite having the villain arc. They don't go much into Dobby because it is needful to the story they're working with that Dobby's stuff not come out until now because
But I think that was also that was the one thing that Spinner was actually good for, is that as long as Spinner was there, Darby wasn't the odd one out for not being explained.
Yeah, but we're getting more detail on Dobby's backstory now than maybe even twice. Oh, the treasure room over here. So it's yeah, they really are going on Dobby being a new character, trying to make him an actual character and explain why he's the way he is. He's very Dobby. Uh, you'll uh, you'll see when you watch it. So in general, it's I think they're finally doing something with League of Villains and making him okay. Shigaraki, because of the way they finally treated him, I can see where they were going with him now, and his story still has some punch to it. It is a real emotional heavy hitter, even though it does feel really forced. So if you're drunk or just kind of taking it for what it is, yeah, you can feel bad for Shigaraki and understand why he's there. And it's interesting to watch him pay a little bit of attention to. Not a lot. I wouldn't go trying to write your masters in literature off how My Hero Academia writes its villains, but you can get a good time out of it. I think with what's going on. I genuinely am excited to see where they're going to take the next arc. Something to look forward to watching. I was a little dubious for
I
a
do
bit
intend
there,
to go
but
back to it.
yeah, it got a little shaky for a little bit there, but they seem to have course corrected, or they didn't really need to correct. They just needed to get where they were going, and now we're finally moving along, and everything seems to be coming together. And the author has said the current arc is the final arc, and he does have an end in mind for the story relatively soon. So we may actually see the end of an anime. Oh, you have a mimic.
Yes, and now I have a pox.
I didn't. I was talking. Didn't see the mimic. Uh, exit's open. We can just head to the next floor. So yeah,
I was depoxing.
uh, I'm not because it's still airing and most of it's still new and Val hasn't watched it yet. I'm not going to spoil the specifics of MHA, but I like the new season. I liked the villain stuff in retrospect a lot. Even I was okay with it before, but now I actually like where they went with it. It's worth checking out to see where they're going. A bunch of people are hating on My Hero Academia now.
Well,
As
that means it definitely must be getting better then.
yeah, it and as usual, it seems to be the cool thing now that the series has had some time is to hate on it. I see people that attempt to explain it, and they don't make a whole lot of coherent sense. It's like these people have never read a story before. Like, oh, we're not doing the school activities and taking things already to this big scale. I'm like, dude, they told you where they were going in the opening credit sequence.
I think they just wanted a succession of tournament arcs.
Yeah, this seems to be a thing. Like, I like the Dark Tournament Yu Yu Hakusho too, guys, but not every story, not even every shonen, needs to have a tournament arc.
Well, it's got tournament arcs.
Yeah, and
Not one, but several. It's
yeah,
just that there are other things that are not that.
yeah, that we have a. It's okay to have an overarching story that people follow characters through that actually impacts the world the characters live in.
So long as the last arc isn't also like Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah, please, no Three Kings arc.
So I think that might actually be the worst arc I've seen in any shonen story.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be. He wanted to stop the anime, or not the anime. He wanted to stop the manga and move on to something else. So he intentionally created what might be the worst shonen arc ever. So that's anime. Um, for video games, talked about the mobile stuff already. I weaseled it into your week. Um, what else? Oh, Final Fantasy. We're playing it right now. So I wrapped up the keep the hunt train and Fate Discord and all that has all that information and popped information when stuff is up across the data center. I don't have to keep that open for fates anymore because I'm done with all the boss fates except for Behemoth. But Behemoth has a much shorter respawn than all the others, and he is visible on the map, so he's posted every single time he pops, and he doesn't have any collectible crap aside from glamours. So I'm not really pushed to go clean out the Mordona vendor of everything that he has. So so yeah, there's that. But all the other ones are done. I got the last kill of the dude in the Tempest that I needed today, actually. So and he was taking forever to show up for me. He's an obnoxious one to get to pop. You have to do a chain of 5 fates. He has to be up, and he has a chance to spawn at the end of that fate chain in the Tempest. And he himself is harder than formidable by a good margin for just how much raw HP he has and the mechanics that can kill you. You're underwater on top of a pillar, and you can't swim because it's the Tempest. The water is not real water. You're in that air bubble that Bismarck gave you or whatever. So you can't swim. You have to stand on this little platform and fight him, not over an abyss, but over a fall just long enough to guarantee you're going to die if you fall off. And of course, he comes with a knockback. A lot of them that go just under one entire arena length. So watching people get flushed slows the fight down even more and makes him take quite a while. And apparently, finishing him is not guaranteed even today with current groups, because sometimes you just all get flushed because people aren't paying attention to where the water spouts are. But yeah, done with those finally. I don't have to obsess over, oh, is so and so popping, and I can just mute that server and turn it on whenever I want to do hunt trains or whatever. I can stop worrying about making sure I'm tracking all the fates and getting those done. So that checklist is done. Not a hard checklist to complete once you know about the Discord. Just you have to do it, and you just got to keep the Discord open. And whenever something pops, if you've got the time for it, go teleport back to Limsa and data center travel to that the server whatever you're looking for is on. I'm lagging again.
Yeah, you got mad robot voice.
Yeah, sorry about this, folks. This is why Fern runs the rig. So hopefully that was just a spike and not my internet giving out on me. Pickle.
Pickle.
Still roboty?
Fine for now.
Okay. So yeah, this is why Fern runs the rig, despite being in America and having the ability to have infrastructure for internet that is relatively good, and supposedly private enterprises that are supposed to be setting it up. That just ain't reality, folks. Oh, the telecom companies. They make me so angry. So yeah, that's the Fate stuff. And the other big thing that ate up 1.5 whole days of my free time was I really wanted to get some of my grind done for the current PvP season, because I like collecting the rewards from it, and I do like Crystalline Conflict. It's just something that you kind of got to sit down and do when you don't really want to do anything else.
Yeah, I would like to get into it, but I just do not have the time. My time spent playing FF is devoted to other projects right now, which makes me annoyed a little bit because I want to do everything. Like, it bothers me that I'm just going to categorically miss out on lots of cool PvP gear and stuff, and there's nothing I can do about that. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, you're not going to get, unless you are insane, you're not going to get every single PvP reward, because some of them are gated behind ratings in Crystalline Conflict, the framer kits and stuff. All right, we got to run to the center with this guy, and I just put fireballs everywhere in the middle.
I don't remember what this guy does.
Gotta be in his hitbox. Yeah. So yeah, I hadn't PvP'd in a while, so I was a little rusty when I started on Thursday, and took a bit to get back in the swing of it. For those that don't know, I play Ninja in PvP, and have played Ninja pretty much exclusively since the PvP rework as my PvP class main. I've tried some of the other classes, but none of them have stuck with me as well as Ninja has because I like toolbox type classes, and Ninja is very much so the toolbox class. Like it has a answer to most situations in its kit somewhere. You just have to get used to its kit and figure out which stupid jutsu is the correct answer. Now, jutsus are only push the pink button and every single one of your other PvP abilities turns into a one button jutsu. But figuring out which one's what and which one to spend your charges on takes a bit of practice, but that's really all the learning curve is to ninja in
Right,
PvP.
I got a time war artifact.
Oh, nice. I got any? No artifacts. 1 out of 15.
15? 4 would have been too many.
Yeah, it's I'll have to take you through Delvin Regine on a weekend or something. One day when you are able to get on early, I'll just be a DPS
Yeah.
white mage and do 40,000 DPS in Delvin Regine.
Yeah, unfortunately, in order for that to happen, I basically need to have somebody trained to the level where I don't have to work on Sundays.
Yeah, it'll have to be at around prime time ish to get a group together, and we'll have to do it through Party Finder. We can go in with lesser people, but it's going to take much longer and makes the whole point of spamming Delibum Regine, which is it's faster, not feasible. So we need to try and get and we actually have to pay attention if there's not a full party of 8 in there. Even more people make it even faster. It's great. I have seen one mythical 24-man Delibum Regine run once, ever, and we blew through that place in like 10 minutes. Multiple people using the right essences and actions makes all the difference in the world. So yeah, that's how we do that. Time War artifacts are a pain in the butt if you haven't done your Baja weapon yet. And if you're like me and you have done a lot of Baja, then you're going to eventually get to a point where you literally have done everything for the normal non-savage Zelda Regine content, except collect Time Worn artifacts. And this means you're going to be stuck with a whole lot of Delibum Regine to do, or a whole lot of Palace of the Dead. Because it's a chance to get one singular every 10 floors in Palace of the Dead that goes up the further down the deeper you are. But those odds never get to 100% and are always quite terrible.
I wonder if they'll adjust that at some point in the future. It does seem a bit abusive, but people have said the same thing about certain aspects of the Zodiac grind as well, but they've never changed that. Or at least they have changed it before. It's just that most of the people playing the game now don't remember just how bad it used to be.
Yeah, I haven't started working on any Zodiac weapons yet. There's too many things to keep track of already that I'm working on. I said I would start a Zodiac weapon and start working on those once I finished all the animal weapons. Which actually, yesterday I took a break from PvP for a little bit to go with Abo to grind up another weapons light, and you can do a light grind in less than an hour normally. With two
Pretty
people,
neat.
yeah, with two people in the one with the trash compactor boss that you have to drop crap in lava in Alexander. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, if you can blow the little dude up out in front of him on Savage, and you can blow him up and get out of there in about a minute and a half per run, and you get 96 out of the 2,000 lights you need per run. So you can zip through it. Yesterday, we figured out that there, even at the Savage tier, we didn't think it worked for Savage. It didn't say it worked for Savage. That there would be just a time frame where you were guaranteed to get bonus light if you'd happen to do the duty, and for that hour, if that duty was the one selected, you would get not quite double, but 50% more light per kill. So we blew through an entire light grind in less than 30 minutes. because we happened to land on that hour for A9S. So I already forgot about it because of how quick it went. So got my dragoon weapon done actually, and spent the rest of my day yesterday and half of the day before that doing crystalline conflict and getting back in the swing of things. So because I knew there was not going to be a whole lot of news, this morning I did a bit more crystalline conflict, and at the end of that romp, once I finally hit platinum rank for the first time, I did a quick write up, or right before I hit it actually. I did a quick write up for my thoughts on all the classes in PvP as far as crystalline conflict is going, as in case we need to fill time idea. And what do you know? We needed to fill time. So I'm going to pull that up on the Discord. You can find it in the brand new Final Fantasy XIV Free Company channel, which you can access by just going to our server and looking in the text channels. And you can join our free company on the Leviathan server if you're so inclined and actually play the game. Although by now, if you know us and you were thinking about being on the server, you probably are. So, things I've noticed in Crystalline Conflict. Now, these impressions are for the entirety of Bronze, Silver, and Gold tier. I've just got into Platinum, and I don't plan on doing more unless I need to burst grind at the end of the season to get the series level 25 rewards. I'm almost there. I think a few daily frontlines will get me there. But just in case, I may have to go spam a few Crystalline Conflicts at the end. But I think I'm done for the season. I think this is a good stopping point. So for these early ranks, you are in a position when you go in, when you decide you're going to do a bit of PvP grinding. If your objective is to win as much as you can, which it probably is, and you want to put a solid effort towards that, you can try and play a class that's more oriented towards team support, but your grind is going to be much, much longer than if you play a DPS class that can carry. And you just practice and get decent. Like, you don't have to get super good. You just have to be able to push your buttons. And know when you need to guard and spam heals and when to go in and engage and stuff like that. And that all comes with practice. But if you can competently burst somebody down and look at where your team is putting their damage and secure kills on people, you're going to make your grind a whole lot easier. Because most people in Bronze through Gold tier cannot do that. They will just throw damage on whoever they think they can hit the hardest. And if that person gets out of range, they will either be completely stupid and go chase them around the map, or they will switch target and let all that damage get undone.
But Aristiel, my one at a time strat.
So, there are a lot of perfectly valid reasons not to fight on the crystal. In fact, several classes you don't want to sit on the crystal because they're just going to get liquefied. Ninja is one of them. You still need to know when to push it, and that comes with practice. Because even though you're not ideally the one pushing the crystal, sometimes you just got to, because nobody else is doing it.
Well, everybody clumping on the crystal also leaves you vulnerable to a lot of limits that are very, very good on grouped up people.
Yeah, you're asking to get Dragoon or Sage ulted on if you're all clumped on the point. So you need to be able to realize when that's a bad idea. And you're going to find that your teammates certainly don't know how to play this video game, and probably don't know how to pull their own pants up in the morning.
Well, I think that it would be more accurate to say a lot of them aren't really trying. They're
Yeah.
there because they feel like they're either they don't really care that much that it's there for a lulz, or they feel like they're entitled to just do whatever when they enter it because it's a pug format.
Yeah. And you need to realize going in off the bat, this is not PvE. Not all classes are created equal. Some of them are just awful. And there is no defending how bad they are. Do not try and play certain classes in Crystalline Conflict.
Yeah, I
You
mean, some of them might be fine in the in front lines or something, but
yeah,
just not work in the crystalline conflict format.
yeah. And some of them have if you have a team that knows what they're doing, can add a lot of value to the team. But I'm talking about bronze through gold. We're not talking about platinum, diamond, and crystal tier, where people start to actually get their act together. So you cannot count on your teammates to do what you need them to do. So the first, I got. I'll go in order of the standard class order. So tanks, healers, melee DPS, range DPS, caster DPS. So the tanks. Uh, these letters didn't have a whole bunch of thought into them, but I gave them letter ranks just so I could track my opinion on them. But I wouldn't think too deep about the letter I gave a class. It's just a general impression of how sad or happy I am to see that class on my team. Paladin I put in C+/B- tier. Uh, Paladin has a stupidly powerful limit break where it halves the damage all of its teammates take that are nearby when it activates it for 10 whole seconds, and it becomes completely invulnerable. This is insanely good for point camping. And you'll see a lot of paladins while their team is all dead and you're at a critical juncture where that crystal needs to stop moving towards your base. Run in, pop guard, do their confetti or slash heal spam and dump their mana on that, go invulnerable with their limit break, and then guard again. And they can waste a whole 25 seconds ish, 25 to 35 seconds on the point doing this and stall your team out. And knowing how to deal with that and realize and finding the targets that have been oh, the exit opened, we left. We don't really need exp anymore. Put it on the way. uh Realizing when to work around a paladin ultimate is something that comes with practice. Problem is having your team realize that there's a paladin on the team and that its limit break is a game swinger and that they need to be nearby the paladin in order for the paladin to be able to support them. Because the paladin also has cover, the formerly most broken ability in front lines ever, that thankfully got singled out to uh, be nerfed. But cover is still stupidly powerful. Put that on a squishier DPS, and they can be a lot more aggressive. If a paladin puts cover on me, I can go just chew through the whole enemy team as a ninja. Because that paladin's going to take all the damage for me, and he gets hit a lot less than I do. That's all great. But you'll notice I've left the most important part out. You can't kill anybody as a paladin, aside from when you occasionally catch somebody low and throw a confettier on them.
Yeah, it's in PvP, like wet noodles can style on a paladin for damage.
Yeah, it is you even they even have the utility to lock somebody down for like a full like 2 to 5 seconds, like at least once or twice a minute. And that's pretty good for singling out a single problematic DPS. It doesn't matter because they don't do any damage. They they are decent at everything, but they require a team behind them. And specifically, if you're trying to rank up in the bronze through gold bracket, don't touch paladin.
So
Maybe
they're a playmaker, but they can't secure a win.
yeah. You can really lock your team into a win if that you got a team that's halfway decent. Uh, you, however, are not going to win the game for your team. And when you're dealing with bronze through gold people, you need to be able to clinch it for the entire team.
Not exactly a hard carry.
Yeah. So that's paladin. Uh, warrior is, I would say, the go-to tank for PvP for a crystalline conflict.
I love playing warrior in PvP. Like it feels just like playing Skarner.
You got a Finks down on you.
I do.
Uh, yeah. So warrior has they're not a whole warrior's not a complicated class. The it's got it's fairly tanky. It takes a bit to take a warrior down. People actually have to to focus it a little bit. Oh, we don't have auto regen. Um, it's got a stupidly powerful AoE stun that hits fairly hard. It's got death grip. It's good at disruption and can bounce all over the place and stick to people. And its limit break is offensive, so you can stop point camping. Like, it's just got everything you want from a offensive tank, and offense is significantly more valuable than defense in Crystalline Conflict, especially at these early ranks. So if you want to play a tank, they're also the least likely to get screwed over by latency, aside from their death grip and the cone on their limit break of the other tanks. Paladin can get really finicky with cover. Gunbreaker's junctions just don't go off if you're lagging sometimes. And
Implying it matters if they do.
yeah, yeah, you'll have trouble getting your junctions to tick on the right person with Gunbreaker due to latency. And Dark Knight, I'm not actually sure what all their abilities do, but I remember having trouble with high latency on Dark Knight. They got nerfed, or they got buffed recently, and so their stuff has totally changed. So the specifics of their abilities, I don't know much about, but I know how they perform. And
The thing with the warrior though is like while the warrior is cool and powerful and versatile, the the major struggle with the warrior is to overcome the urge to Leroy Jenkins the team.
this is a thing for all tanks. Not even a paladin can go Leroy Jenkins the enemy team, because in Crystalline Conflict you do not have the damage reduction buff that you get in front lines if you play melee. So if you go run in there, you're just going to get liquefied.
See, the thing is though, like the reason why I single out the warrior as having this concern specifically is that the warrior is like a grab bag of all the best engagement tools you could possibly want.
Mm-hmm.
But if your team doesn't follow you, it doesn't really matter.
Usually, the way most Crystalline Conflict matches will start, the two teams will run and stop at either side of the crystal, because they know whoever goes in first is likely going to die if they just jump in and go for the crystal immediately. And so you'll have this poking game where you try to force somebody out of position or catch someone that's trying to start something before they can get away with it, and try and take somebody out early to put the numbers on your side so that you can properly engage. This you don't just go Leroy into the enemy team with Primal Rend and uh just think everything will be K, because it won't.
Primal Rend is an ungodly satisfying move to use. It's just that if you just use it when it's up, you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah, you need to know when to use, and it's usually after the back and forth poke at the beginning. You after somebody's been singled out and somebody has fallen victim to the mosh pit at the start. That's when you want to go in, and you want to try and do it on only one or two people, and hopefully with a teammate behind you to help you burst the more problematic one down immediately. So that's how that works with Warrior. It's straightforward. What you see is what you get. This is a plus and a minus, but it's still a lot of fun to play.
It's only a plus and a minus subjectively though. I think it's a plus, just flat plus.
Yeah.
Like I play the Ungabunga class because I like Ungabunga.
Yeah. So that's Warrior. Dark Knight is the second best tank right now. They recently got buffs. I don't remember exactly what all of them were, but they were fairly substantial, because Dark Knight used to be totally useless. It did no damage, and its utility was quite bad. They have buffed the range it can throw people around with its little circle it puts on the ground, and they have buffed its damage considerably. I'm not sure exactly what they did, but now Dark Knights can hit pretty hard. They don't have the best burst, they're not a DPS, but they don't hit like a wet noodle anymore, and they can visibly contribute towards taking down a problem enemy on the enemy team. So if you don't want to play Warrior and you want something that not as many people play, but can hold there's a little bit tankier and can hold a crystal point better with your limit break, you can give Dark Knight a shot. They are bar none the best at stopping a push with the crystal when things go out, and baiting ultimates. I have seen more ultimates wasted on Dark Knights that would have secured a kill on any other class when the Dark Knight had his UB up than I was comfortable admitting to, because oh boy, they just eat Mechanist and bad Ninja Ultimates all day long, and they don't care because they can't die when that thing's active. Gunbreaker is really bad. It's
I keep thinking that it can't possibly be that bad. I'm just too bad to understand how to use it.
yeah. I Gunbreaker Junction for DPS does okay damage. Not as good as a proper burst class, but you can get away with it. You could theoretically carry with it even. The problem is it it would, if you were going to go that route, why aren't you playing a proper burst class that will do that job but better? Like the
Yeah, but I
ability,
mean, this has been the like hybrid design problem since the year dot, basically.
yeah, because once you're in there isn't a whole lot of room for adjusting your strategy on the fly because of the way the initial engagement works and how much that swings the way the match is gonna play out. You need to pick a way you're gonna operate that game and stick to it. Games aren't that long, so you don't really have time to analyze the situation and pick a different role and swap to it and be a little bit better at something. It's just not going to work. And they fall into the trap of they're a jack of all trades that uh, has needs to go back to trade school because they just don't have what it takes to compete against a field full of specialists that do every job they try to do but better. So so yeah, that's Gunbreaker. Don't play Gunbreaker. So next,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of curious though, like how often? Because you said you played like 40 odd matches or something. You played a whole bunch all at once.
yeah,
How often did you run into gunbreakers on your team?
mm, about there was a fairly even distribution of classes yesterday. So about I want to say about 12 games. There was a Gunbreaker somewhere in the game,
So ultimately, people at that level are just playing whatever class they think is cool.
or whatever class they need EXP on. Because remember, Crystalline Conflict gives EXP too.
That's one of the reasons that I haven't played any, because I would feel compelled to play something that would gain EXP, even if I don't really like playing it.
Mm-hmm. So you get people that are playing classes they don't really know very well or are attached to. So you're going to wind up with people that just don't have a clue. Oh wait, the exit's over. I'm trying to read Discord at the same time.
I'm bad enough at astrology in a normal context. I don't even want to think about how to learning to play it in PvP.
Yeah. So yeah, Gunbreaker needs some work. You are a burden to the team that could have picked literally almost anything else and been better. And while you can get away with doing it, the only reason it doesn't get its own tier is you can carry on it. You just won't be as good as if you pick something else. So we gotta blow boss up.
What does this guy do again? I don't
Uh,
remember.
Void zones
Other than
and
spawn Pazuzu.
yeah, zones and he summons ads. So kill the boots when they spawn and don't stand in yuck. And he dies really fast. He has like no HP. So yeah. The healers. We have White Mage up first. So, White Mage is, in my opinion, and most people's opinion, bar none the best healer for Crystalline Conflict by a country mile.
Because it can actually heal.
Yeah. So,
Unlike the other ones, which basically can't.
the bigger reason, while that is a plus, uh, the bigger reason is that they're
As
stupid.
an enormous space laser.
Yeah, the laser charges at Red Bull speed, so they have their limit break up almost all the time. It's freaking huge, does decent damage, and is a practically a guaranteed full stun on the enemy team.
I'm a little bit incredulous about that, actually. It's like you went out of your way to introduce the Sage class and then gave the laser to the White Mage.
Oh, they have a sages have a laser in PvP. It's just a baby one. They get phlegma or whatever it's called. Phlegma
Wait,
balls.
Phlegma's a... Yeah, it's not a laser. It's a ball.
Yeah, it's a. What's it called? I'd have to look it up. Once we get out of here, I'll find what the ability's
I,
called.
I know that they've got one because it's a PvE skill as well, but I can't remember what it's called because it's at level 90 and I haven't got it yet.
Yeah. So we'll get to Sage in a minute. But White Mage, their polymorph in particular makes them super good because you can't guard while you're when you polymorph somebody. Uh, you can't use your heal, and you can't sprint or use any defensive actions. You are just stuck there, and you can't cleanse it. It's not cleansable, so you're just stuck as the little critter they turn you into. And this is 2 second window, or however it's like. I think it's 3 seconds actually. Doesn't seem like a lot. That's one and a half GCDs. Doesn't matter. That's enough time to die. You are very squishy in PvP. Everybody is squishy in PvP, and a good time polymorph on a DPS that's jumped in on you will just that DPS is dead if your whole team's there. It will not
Or
live.
the paladin that's trying to stall your team out.
Yeah, if he runs in and as soon as his first guard goes away, you polymorph him, the whole team can just melt him before he can start any of his healing and vulnerability BS. Oh, gates open. We don't need to go exploring. Next up, we have Scholar. I didn't give them a tier, and part of that's because I just don't know what Scholar does.
Scholar is a collection of abilities that sound good on paper, and I can't figure out how to make work in practice.
So here's the deal with Scholar. Whenever I have a Scholar on my team, things seem to go well for me, though none of their stuff is flashy or visible enough that I can tell exactly what the heck it is they're doing.
All of the abilities improve your tactical situation slightly. They have no splash whatsoever. Like nothing that they do will be a turning point in the battle. But if the scholar is doing his job correctly, the theory is that basically everything you do becomes a little bit easier than it would be otherwise. Like everybody has a little bit more effective health than they would have otherwise. Every enemy has a little bit less effective health and is taking a bit of passive damage. Every enemy moves a little bit slower than they would. Your team moves a little bit faster than they would otherwise. If they've got their ultimate up, then your team just becomes a good deal tougher than they would be under normal circumstances for a little while. Like everything is a small effect over a large area, which changes the odds of the battle slightly in your favor.
Yeah, and if if you are running a burst heavy composition, Scholar's small changes or small stuff like that makes a huge difference in what your team can do. But there's a problem. While it's nice to have one, and if you are playing a carrying class, it's going to make you able to really perform that match and secure a fairly comfortable victory more than likely. Problem is, when you're playing the Scholar, that's not what's going to happen.
No, you cannot carry with a scholar. It's not gonna happen. You don't have the tools to do anything really decisive as far as I've experienced. You're there to massage the odds in your team's favor, and if your team is cooperating, your team will be. It's sort of like how an evenly matched team, an evenly matched mirror match, always goes in the favor of the opponent in Pinecone on Arena
Mm-hmm.
because they just have 10% more of everything than you do, which is a tiny margin, but it's enough to guarantee that they always completely dominate you. As effectively used, Scholar is the same. You just have all of the numbers are just weighted slightly in your favor. So if everybody is doing their job equally well, you win.
Yeah,
But it requires everybody to be doing their job.
and most classes, most burst classes even, don't have enough burst on their own to take you from 100 to 0 in 2 GCDs without help. With a Scholar on the team that's put a dot on the target and made you a bit tougher, so that you can get in there and stay in there and stick on that target for those 2 GCDs. Yeah, as a ninja, you can totally drop somebody in 2 GCDs with a Scholar that has a dot on them. That thing is totally going to die if you blow your load. But the Scholar itself, because it can't carry, you're throwing yourself to the whims of fate and whether or not you'll be able to find a competent team that can help you there, and that's just not a winning strategy. So do not play this for your own sake in Crystalline Conflict, even though a lot of people will probably like you if you do.
Yeah, you're going to have some legendary matches and some legendarily frustrating ones.
Yeah, you will get frustrated with yourself before anything else. At higher tier, Scholar's probably really, really good. But moving on to Astro. Astro is great in front lines. Because Macro has a lot of targets it can hit, and its AoE slow is very effective. Just line conflict, though, there are not nearly as many targets, and the bursters are mostly melee DPS, and they are spread out across the map. And hitting them with gravity to root them and is nice, but you need to, you don't have a team to hide behind either to just throw cards on and make better. While all your cards are really powerful and your root slash slow is really powerful, you just don't have as much oomph as you do in a frontline match because you're just hitting less people. And there you can really see the value of those abilities go down when they don't have as many targets. And like Scholar, it relies on your team to not suck. And if you're in low ratings, your team's going to suck. So I don't recommend Astro. Next, we have Scholar. Or not Scholar. We have, yeah, Scholar. Sage. What am I talking about? Okay, we have Sage. Sage is really good. Not as good as White Mage, but they have a whole lot of stuff in PvP going for them. They have dots like Scholar does, but they are a little harder hitting and single target only with no way to spread them around easily. And they do all their healing slash shielding passively. As in, their Cardia target will get the benefit of the usual Sage crap of do offensive stuff and buff your Cardia target with some kind of defensive something. And this means just throw Cardia on the guy that's going to be going in there and taking the brunt of the enemy fire. And that's all you got to do to think about healing and switch Cardia when that target finally dies or does something stupid. So you'll be shuffling Cardia around a lot. Probably make some macros to do that faster. Be nice. Might help you a bit. I don't mean Sage in PvP, so I've not done these things, but just thoughts off the top of my head. And their big thing is their limit break. It drops a field on the ground that not a whole lot of people in especially the low ratings understand, and it's why Sage in particular is so powerful at the low ratings. They don't know how this limit break works, and you will see it kill teams by itself because people don't know what it does. What it does, so you're not one of these people, is it puts a small field down, almost exactly the diameter of the little targeting circle around the crystal that you're pushing. And if your allies stand inside of it, they get a slight buff to their defenses, but nothing right on about, I think. And the important thing is they cannot take any damage from anybody who initiates an attack outside the circle if they're inside of it. And if the enemy comes into the circle, they get a ridiculously hard-hitting dot placed on them that softens everybody up to be bursted down. And I have seen so many enemy teams, or sometimes my own team, just go commit Sudoku in the Sage circle because they don't know how it works. Or they will try to blow limit breaks on people that are currently protected by the Sage ultimate, and it just fizzles. So I think Ninja's Deathlink still that puts you in melee, so you'd be on top of him anyway. So that's not a good example. That's probably why it works. But
what about what about a dragoon that jumps from outside to inside?
It matters where you are when the attack's damage goes out. So whenever the server decides that your damage is now registered, wherever you are at that point determines whether or not your damage counts. So for Dragoon Jump, I don't know when that is. I don't know when in the fall down animation that is.
When that is.
Yeah. So you would have
Primal Rends on target though, I think.
Yeah.
When you're on target, then the damage is applied.
Yeah, and it already calculates your position as though you just instantly appear at where your enemy's location is. So I know you can Primal Rend 2 people inside of it, Um, I don't know if it does damage for sure, but I think it does. Um, but yeah, Sage Ultimate is very dangerous. You don't want to get hit by it, and they don't have bad damage output. They trade some of the utility that Scholar has for a little bit more damage, and that goes a long way. So generally, you want to see Sages on your team, but like all the other healers, you're not going to carry with it. You can carry with White Mage. A good polymorph. It takes some special kind of dumb people not to see a good polymorph and take advantage of it. Sage, you need a little bit more effort. You need to at least wait for the enemy to be clumped up to drop your LB on them, and you're really relying on your LB to do most of your carry work for you. So not the best. A minus might have been a bit high, but they are very strong and not a wasted pick. You could get away with playing Sage. Melee DPS. Talk about a class I've changed my opinion on. Monk. Monk in PvP. If you look at their kit, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of synergy there, and it seems like their combos take way too long to go through, and there's just a whole lot of weird monkisms inside their kit.
It's basically the best way to describe the class as a whole in the game. It's full of monkisms.
Yeah, it's a weird thing looking at it on paper, but inside a crystalline conflict, it's very all the tools it has make a whole lot of sense. And you realize that some of the weirder effects are actually cost to the abilities, like the knockback you do not having you auto follow the target and having to expend a dash charge, because that knockback is so powerful and sends you so far that them having to dash to you to keep the combo up is actually a part of the cost of the ability. And that is probably their most generically useful tool. Dash to an enemy, get behind them, and kick them into your enemy team. Or
In
into
super
your own team.
small scale combat, positioning is everything. So that's basically it's a different version of the scanner move. The warriors. I can't remember because it's something they don't have in the PVE mode, so I can't even remember what it's called. But
Yeah.
the grab move. It's a grab move, except it comes in multiple pieces, and it's got a humongous range.
Yeah. So the most common thing you'll see a monk do at the start of a fight is be the first one to engage the enemy team, or wait till the initial engagements started but still ongoing. Dash in there to somebody that they don't want to be alive for very long. Uh, immediately get behind them, kick them, and push the guard button. This is the most common opening play for Monk, and it is insanely effective no matter how, even if you know it's coming, because you are more concerned with not being the guy that gets kicked into the enemy team than finding a way to stop him from doing it. And there ain't a whole lot of ways to stop him from doing it unless you prep a stun ahead of time or something. And even then, they can do it really fast. The server's really got to be on your side to get that stun off in time. And after they kick you into their team, they're free to guard or dash to you now that they've moved you back into their team and help their team pummel you. Usually they'll guard because if the mosh pit's still going on early, they're also in danger in the position they put themselves in. But sometimes they just go for it, and sometimes it works. Their limit break is insanely powerful. I think it goes through guard, and it's like a tanker truck, and makes their burst incredibly good if they line it up with the right point in their combo. With their long combo string being so long, because the tail end of it hits like a truck, and prepping it right before you go in for your burst is how you get away with Monk. And it's weird monkism of having a stupidly long combo chain. They're just really strong. They can be a little hard to carry with sometimes, even with their stickiness, because while their burst is really good, it comes up infrequently and does have that long combo chain. Now, the most effective use of a monk outside the opening of the fight is go sick them on a caster, and just have them be that guy that just bullies the squishies in the back, because they have 3 dash charges, so they can sit on that caster or range DPS, and there ain't nothing that range DPS can do to them to get them off. unless they find a way to kill them or get some help. That monk is just going to drive them nuts. It can they makes monks able to effectively render things like black mages completely useless because black mages need to be left alone to do their thing. So so yeah, that's monk. Worth looking into if you enjoy the class, but you're insane if you enjoy the class. So
Yeah, you're a monk player already if you enjoy the class.
but yeah, it's a weird one, but it is very effective once you get the hang of it. Let's see, Dragoon. Uh, if you just want to get your PvP rating up, there is no better class than Dragoon. Dragoon is the easiest of all the melee DPS to play. It has a both a charge and a retreat move, so its mobility is insanely good, letting you play way more aggressive and get away with stuff you really shouldn't. And all of its abilities are incredibly straightforward to use. It has it is tankier than you'd think with Horrid Roar, reducing the enemy's damage they deal to the Dragoon for everybody they hit with it, and they can sustain themselves with a little bit of lifesteal. They hit like a truck, and their limit break is probably the biggest game swinger limit break in Crystalline Conflict.
When you don't use it on a Dark Knight.
Yeah, when you don't use it on a Dark Knight or something, but they jump up in the air, they stay up in the air and charge it up, and they come back down. And the closer you are to the center of the point they came back down at, the more damage you take. And it can do upwards of, I think, 30k if you're near the center if it doesn't crit. So, and everybody has around 60k health in PvP. So that's half of an entire enemy team's health they can just delete with one push of a button. It is stupidly good and has no, as far as I can tell, no major drawbacks at all in PvP. It is just a solid carry class. It does things a little too just generically good in Unga Bunga, from what I understand, in higher ratings. But we're
But
not
I love
talking.
Unga Bunga.
But we're not talking about higher ratings. We're talking about bronze through gold. And in bronze through gold, you can just get good and learn and practice your fundamentals and just do Dragoon.
Don't do like me and use guard at the wrong time every time.
Yeah.
I always use it either like 2 seconds too early or 2 seconds too late.
Yeah. We'll talk about Ninja next, because it's led me to the bad habit of not using guard enough, especially when I play classes that aren't Ninja.
You're used to being unbreakable.
Yeah, I'm used to being able to, in an emergency, sacrifice my burst to survive. So yeah, that's Dragoon. There ain't a whole lot to say about them, despite being what I'm calling the best class for this. Oh, found the horde on this floor somewhere. And yeah, next is my class that I play, the Ninja. Ninja is not an easy class to get a handle on because a bunch of its stuff is a little finicky, and it's a toolbox class, so that it has a lot of pieces going on with it. With it having a ranged huge single target single shot burst, Bunshin, doubling your next 5 attacks or increasing the damage of your next 5 attacks by 50%, and so on. There's a whole lot of intricacies to the Ninja that you got to figure out that are very unique to that class. But
Just checking all these guys.
yeah, we can. That's not going to let us kill him too much faster, though. Oh my.
Uh-oh, too many chickens.
Yeah, I started pushing the dump my juice button. So yeah. Their biggest tool that ninjas have to really mess with the enemy team is their ability to play hit and run games. You can run in and do a few attacks. Now, for the most part, you're a ranged class. This is listed under the melee classes, but do not be deceived. Ninja is not a melee class. Ninja is a ranged class with a couple abilities that require you to be in melee range. You should never, ever, if you can help it, be sitting there doing your basic combo. Hang on, we got to do Etna. Etna requires a tiny bit of brain work. I'm gonna pause some food just to make it go here.
There's a lot of run in, run out, but I don't remember what they are.
We'll figure it out. We'll muddy our way through. But look away. There. There. Cast on Jolt. Etta has stuff you actually have to pay attention to. Get hit by too much of a crap, then she's going to just murderize the whole group. So, okay. So yeah, with Ninja, the most common normal tactic you'll do is your Sakuchi, which is your dash. It's a ground teleport, so you teleport to a spot on the ground, and when you hit the ground, you go invisible, and this forces a D target. So anybody targeting you loses you as a target. And let's see. And while you're invisible, your basic combo button is replaced with Assassinate. Assassinate hits like a truck, and if you have bunching going, it does 50% more damage. So it hits like an even harder truck. Put a big ol' tricked out grill on the front of that truck with spikes on it. And it will chunk people for like 24,000 HP. Now, this is a minimum of 20-second cooldown between uses of this between assassinates, and it is tied to your dash, which is also your both your best way to get in and burst somebody in the back row and your primary means of escape in case you get in trouble. So you gotta know when to use it, and that also takes some practice. What else does Ninja have? Ninja has the ability to play the role that we were talking about with Scholar, of softening up the enemy team with whatever the fireball ability is called. That jutsu. If you expend one of your charges on that, you shoot a fireball at a target, and that target explodes, and everything around it is lit on fire with a dot. And that dot, while not super hard hitting, is usually enough to put stuff in burst range if you hit somebody with it and they don't heal because they think the damage is too minor, which in low rating people often do. So yeah, there's that way of going through with it. Your range shuriken jutsu is insanely hard hitting. It does like 12 to 16,000 and is a ranged attack. Now, all these jutsus I'm talking about, you can hold up to 2 charges of jutsus, and you get one back every 20 seconds, and you cannot use the same jutsu twice in succession. You must pick a different one the next time you pop it. You can't just pop it and not use anything. You have to use a different jutsu, which is fine. Just if you really need to, put the hot on yourself. It's been nerfed into the ground to be practically useless, but better than nothing. If you're otherwise going to lose a jutsu charge because you pop it too early. And your whole gameplay loop is going to revolve around how many jutsu charges do you have currently. If the answer is a number other than 0, it's going to change the way you think about how you're going to approach the situations coming up, and you need to get used to that and what options you have available, which jutsu is currently locked out, and because the 2 GCDs you need to turn it on, fire other jutsu, and then turn it back on again, before you can fire the one you want if you just use the one you want for the situation. That's forever in PvP. That's
It's
a
rage.
that's a very long. Oh, I can rage. So I don't know why I'm killing these guys in here. Dead now. So yeah. What else can they do? You can put a shield on yourself with Huton. Uh, that for a Jetsu charge. It's not a super big shield, but it is definitely noticeable and can, if you know you have to engage in a dangerous situation, or you think the fight at the start of the match is going to be particularly bloody from the melee, or you know you're going to have to go in, it's perfectly okay to pop Huton to give yourself a little bit more girth to take maybe a few extra hits and maybe be able to escape after you engage.
Earth.
Yeah, there's a whole lot more that goes into Ninja, but the big thing, the other big thing with Ninja is their limit break is called Deathlink, and this is a very unique PvP limit break, and that it was designed to be the most fun and the most frustrating limit break in all time for PvP. It is incredibly latency dependent, and I have revised my opinion on how this stupid thing works 30 times because some days on some depending on my internet, it is amazing and will give me the benefit of the doubt every time I pop it. Some days it hates me. Isn't there a site? Okay. And the way it works is once your bar is filled up, it takes a moderately big amount of time to fill up a ninja limit break bar for a DPS. It's not as long as Dragoon or Paladin, some of the really swingy ones. But it still takes a while. You can usually get, on average, 2 opportunities to start a Deathlink chain.
Yeah,
And
today I found 3 accursed hordes blind.
yeah, I saw. I didn't comment on it because I'm trying to keep my brain straight while I talk about PvP. But I saw you get at least 2, maybe 3. And yeah, what Deathlink does is if the target is below 50%, whenever the game has the flag go up to check for that condition, which happens sometime between the start of the animation and the halfway point on my latency, and it's a very long animation, the target just gets insta killed at the end of the animation, and there's nothing that will save them.
Well, I mean, anybody who's played like healer at any length of time knows what it's like with that sort of thing, especially if they were like a career white mage, and they've benedictioned a lot of tanks and had them die anyway, even though the text says that it landed.
Yeah. If the connections are in your favor, you can have scenarios where you push the death link button, get teleported to the target, but it dies to somebody else's damage because they had their burst going on them at the same time and you didn't know it, and it doesn't eat the death link charge, but still leaves you at the enemy location. It's a really finicky LB, but it has the quirk where if you kill somebody with it, or 6 seconds after you hit somebody with it, because it does a token amount of damage too, but nobody cares about that. It just does as much as your normal big shuriken does. Uh, the cooldown is reset, and you can do it again within the next 6 seconds to another target. And if you kill them, you can do it again for free within the next 6 seconds to another. You see where this is going? And this is why Ninja can carry so hard in PvP and why I like it so much. Because in addition to his crazy toolbox shenanigans for having all the tools in the world, you can just go on a Deathlink spree and turn a match around that has completely flushed itself down the toilet. All you need is one good Deathlink to get it started. And I really, really enjoy Ninja. I think it's the second best of all the classes that I've seen or tried to try and carry a team with. And I think it's more fun than Dragoon because it's less unga bunga, more toolboxy. But that's a matter of how much you want to, what type of playstyle you like.
I think it's also a matter of how much time you spend playing PvP, because if you don't spend much time playing PvP, Ninja's going to be an exercise in frustration.
Yeah, And Ninja is also much more reliant on having a decently passable latency. Like Vol would have a lot of trouble with Ninja, I think, because Death Links just wouldn't work for you sometimes. You would swear up and down that he was at below half HP for the entire first half of the animation. The flag just didn't trip in your favor. And if you whiff it, you whiff it. It's gone. You don't have it back until you fill that bar up again. Congratulations, you just did the longest shuriken toss animation in the world. So you need to really make your death links count, and you're going to screw a lot of them up, even if your latency's good that particular day. Getting used to it, but the toolbox nature of the class, I think, makes it a lot of fun to play, and definitely worth the time to put into it, and really get into the nuance of what is good in what situation, because there's just a whole lot of fun stuff you can figure out about it. And yeah, that's pretty much Ninja. I'll probably talk a bit more about Ninja and reiterate some of the stuff I mentioned here quicker if I do more PvP in the future, because I really just enjoy playing that class in PvP. It's a ton of fun. Oh, stupid pot. Oh, the horde's here, isn't it? So that's Ninja. Samurai. Samurai is another one that's had my opinion revised on. Initially, when the PvP rework came out, I thought Samurai were insane. Samurai, because of the nature of the way their limit break works, are a nope, not messing with that mess. Because of the nature of their LB and it needing to be a counter effectively, seeing the opportunities to use it and not get insta-jib, because you can be stunned out of the cast time on your LB, and I do it all the time as a ninja. I will save a jutsu for a charge specifically if I see a samurai with a limit break up on the enemy team, just so I can stun him out of his LB.
Is it possible to target and stun a dragoon who's mid LB?
No, they are not. They are effectively not on the map. They cannot. They take damage from dots they already have on them, but you can't do anything new to them. I'm not even sure they can be healed. So, for all intents and purposes, while the dragoon is up in the air and in transit, he doesn't exist for the purposes of most abilities in the game. Safety, like safety. Got it. I'll let you get it.
Yeah.
So, the way Samurai works, you have to put a buff on yourself that has another passive effect that's minor damage taken and a little bit of light damage to anybody that hits you for its duration. That's not very long. It's like 3 to 4 seconds. But anybody that hits you gets a little debuff on them. And anybody you hit with your limit break, while this debuff is on them, it lasts about 4 to 5 seconds, I think. Takes 100% of their total health in damage from your LB instead of its usual damage. And you attack in a straight line, a fairly wide straight line in front of you for about 25 yalms. Pretty big LB. And it hits decently hard on its own. But getting this stupid counter to go off is really difficult. And the fact that everybody by now knows what a samurai is, and that it has this tool in its kit that it's going to build plays around, you're going to get people like me that just sit on a stun to stun you out of it. Because if we stun you out of it, you just lose your bar. You need to be able to finish that cast. And that's really tough.
I suppose the logic is that, oh well, if you're holding onto a stun for that LB, then you're not stunning the black mage.
Yeah, that is a trade-off, but that also means I don't have to worry about one of the limit breaks on the enemy team, unless I see a kill opportunity on somebody else. I'm going to sit on that charge of my stun and just not use it until you get in range, because no samurai is going to just sit on their limit break being ready. That's just wasting bar and potentially stopping you from getting a second charge before the end of the match. So you want to use it. So just whenever they have that bar for that duration, as long as one person on the enemy team is aware of it and sits on a stun, you need to be very careful with how you deploy it, and this is a very difficult thing to do. So it is, and because of the nature of the ultimate, it's also just harder to execute than something like Deathlink or the Dragoon Dive. So you're going to be in a bit finickier of a situation when it comes to carrying a team, because you got to work around that. So yeah, that's Samurai. The rest of their stuff's decent. They have a root, that's good. Their damage, sustained and burst, is okay. Their sustained damage is, they have better sustain than they do burst. A little less valuable than burst in Crystalline Conflict, but it's workable. That sustained damage can chew through somebody if you give it enough time. But you need to know how to move and stick on people and really use your survivability tools on Samurai. And it's just a lot of more work than something like Ninja, where once you know what to do, the answer is there, and you just got to hit two buttons. Or something like Dragoon that just it's all unga bunga all the way, or Warrior or something. So I put them in B minus because while the potential is there to carry with it, it's just a lot more work to do so than some of the other picks.
The
Reaper,
weebs will still pick it regardless.
yeah, they will. Reaper, Reaper is unfortunately not very good. They have Hysteria, which is a stupidly strong LB, in that it forces you to lose control of your character and go running off in a random direction. This is doubly good because A, it breaks guards, and B, it gets you off the point. Or, in a best case scenario, sends you into your team, or sends the enemy into your team, so that you can wail on somebody that was currently blockading you. Now, the problem is none of the rest of their crap is any good. Their sustain isn't good for damage. Their burst is just okay, and that Hysteria cast is literally all they bring to the table for utility. They just need their numbers pumped to be good, but right now, Reaper's its numbers are too low. Whenever I see a Reaper, I'm like, oh no, a Reaper. I'll have to make use of the Hysteria. Hope they know to push it when people are guarding. But yeah, don't recommend Reaper at all for trying to carry with. You're gonna wind up in wacky situations, and you just don't have the burst or the sustained damage to pull a team over the finish line. Up, gates open. Range DPS. Bard, the second worst class in Crystalline Conflict. They're not the worst. Bard is a team reliant class in Crystalline Conflict, which we've talked about before, and it has a really strong silence, and silence is the best form of crowd control because people will still come in and attack you because they can still technically control their character and push their buttons. Their buttons just won't do anything. And their buttons include their guard and their heal button for the generic PvP actions. So in general, I consider silence to be the best form of crowd control, because you will see enemies do incredibly stupid things while they're silenced, and you will do incredibly stupid things while you're silenced, thinking that you have access to your buttons when you don't. And so you will wind up putting yourself in a bad position. Unfortunately, they can only hit one target with it, and it only lasts 2 seconds. So that's unfortunate. And the rest of their stuff just buffs the team's damage a little bit, and their personal damage is butt, like total butt. Not as bad as another class we'll talk about, but still total butt. Do not play Bard in Crystalline Conflict. Next up, what do we got? We have Mechanist. Mechanist is a hard one to place, because on paper, it should be amazing. But in practice, it's only okay. It's a little better than okay, but it's not nearly as good as when you first read through its abilities. You're like, holy crap, that's amazing. Because the numbers on them all look so big. But there's quite a long cooldown between execution of the big moves, and your burst is very spread out. But that burst is very high. And your air anchor roots and your dots you put on people and stuff are all super, super good. And their limit break is the best aside from ninjas, single target, just delete this problem enemy that's been softened up a little bit button that there is. And even with its long cast and the ability for the enemy to see it, it penetrates guard, does a crap load of damage, and it's really good. The only problem they have, it just takes too dang long for their stuff to come off cooldown. Although, as a plus to playing Mechanist, you you will occasionally get the legendary chainsaw quipple kill, where you just insta delete the entire enemy team with chainsaw. It does not happen very often, but I have seen it happen a few times, which is a lot more than I would think I would. So, unfortunately, I was on the receiving end of it all but one of those times. So that is that's machinist or mechanist or whatever. Perfectly fine to pick, but I think there you will have an easier time if you try a few of the other classes. But if you're married to the idea of a ranged DPS class, there's no problem with picking mechanist. You can get away with it just fine. You won't be sad to see one on your team, but you're not gonna jump for joy either. Okay, last up for the ranged DPS, we have unequivocally the absolute worst class in Crystalline Conflict. Period. End. And that is good old Dancer. Dancer is awful in every way, shape, and form. And how this cleared testing, you got me. I have no effing clue. It is really, really, really bad. So first off, like in PvE, Dancer's personal damage ain't great. In fact, it's downright awful. They can do practically no damage on their own to the enemy. It is a very long, drawn out process to kill somebody as a dancer in PvP, and you basically have to expend the entirety of the enemy's resources and have them be left alone for a full 45 seconds to be able to output the damage you will need to kill them from a full mana bar. It just ain't happening. Your buffs that you apply with Dance Partner, you fell over. You can just hit the return button now. It's already counted the clear.
I don't know what killed me exactly.
Probably the lead from the puddle. Happens to
I
me.
got reduced from 100 to about 2% health, and then got killed by an auto attack.
Oh, I have no idea. One of his busters, probably. Maybe you got clipped by the server thought your toe was inside one of the orbs exploding or something.
Could be.
But yeah, you have no personal damage. Your Dance Partner effect, where you buff one teammate to do a lot more damage and give them bonus effects, doesn't matter. It does not do enough to get you over the finish line. It does not do enough to impact any of their performance, because if you give it to a burst class, the burst class ain't going to really know what to do with it, because it's just going to make their burst a little bit more effective, but not enough to push them over the line where it saves them a GCD on a kill, which is what's important, because that's going to mean they might be able to beat out the enemy healing themselves. You give it to a sustain, they'll probably like it a little bit better, but most of them aren't going to be swinging the game. In which case, why are you playing Dancer? Number 3, you have to be in melee range for most of your abilities. And all of them suck. And you are made out of tissue paper.
Wait, aren't there a ranged class?
Yes.
So somebody mixed up the design docs for Ninja and Dancer.
Yeah. So when you are Dancer, at least 2 of your main buffing abilities require you to hit somebody in melee range. And ideally, you keep them up all the time, because all of your class budget appears to go into this utility to keep these buffs up. Who thought this was a good idea? You have a fairly strong limit break where you can stun the whole enemy team for 5 seconds and break their guards. But that means you're useful maybe once a match for 5 seconds. And the rest of the time, people don't even they're not even going to bother insta-melting you because you're a squishy dancer in melee range. But they're just going to leave you alone because they don't care what you do. You're not an important target. and you're just going to be the guy that sits there on the point spamming AoEs ineffectually while their actual team attempts to do something useful and fails miserably because they're a whole man down for the rest of the match. Do not play Dancer in Crystalline Conflict. It is bad for you. It is bad for your teammates. It's bad for everybody.
And how many did you meet? About 12?
There, about half the matches had a dancer somewhere, and if there was only one, the dancer's team almost always lost. Now, keep in mind these impressions are just what I got from uh, comparing my old thoughts on Crystalline Conflict to my current run through of the low ranks. At high ranks, there may be something I just haven't seen or understood yet, but Dancer is one of those things where I don't think there's any defense for it in any way it can be good. So that's Dancer. It gets its own tier, Dancer tier. It's that bad. In fact, don't
You just got to dance though.
don't play Dancer in frontline either. Same problems, except worse because there's more people in melee range to pound on you, and you don't have the damage reduction of a melee class that the frontlines give. Ain't that nice? So yeah, what was the site in the other one?
Yeah, she's a steal.
So yeah, the casters are next. They're all fairly B tier. Some are B plus, B minus. But they're
Dancers.
yeah. There are no dancers in the casters right now, but none of them really stand out like Ninja Paladin, Warrior, White Mage, etc. But none of them really fall down into the tier of uselessness like Gunbreaker, Dancer, Bard, stuff like that. So first you have Black Mage. Black Mage, if a Black Mage is allowed to sit there and do its thing, it's going to wreck the entire team. No Black Mage is going to be allowed to sit there and just do its thing, though. And you have to learn how to use your mobility to get around and hope that you have a teammate that will save you when the monk or the ninja decides you look like you make a tasty meal.
So even in the lowest brackets, people know what a black mage does.
Yeah, because you turn into a giant glowing sign that says, "Hey, I'm juiced right now and got instacast big spells. Look at this big giant purple pillar of light coming from right on top of my position that goes the entire time that I have this buff going." So you make yourself a giant target when you pop your buff, and people will notice it immediately and come try and eat you. And black mages are a part of a healthy, balanced breakfast for your local monks and ninjas, and they just love to eat them. So you need to have
You can serve a useful role as a distraction.
yeah. So you need they can, if they're allowed to get away with their shenanigans, and sometimes you do. Sometimes black mages can just be left alone to go ham if the melee are doing a particularly good job at either being a big enough distraction for the enemy to just let you go ham, or they are too preoccupied with some other event going on. You can just start rolling and ramping your stacks up. You can get your big AoE stun off and totally wipe the enemy team, or put a stupidly heavy dot on everybody, and swing a whole team fight in your favor. There's a lot of crap you can do with Black Mage to make it exceptionally good in swing fights, but you got to get that time where you're left alone to ramp and get those stacks rolling. It's really tough to get that time, and learning how to escape bad situations, which you will be in a lot as a Black Mage, because people will see you glowing very brightly and decide to come eat you. Is going to be a challenge in an uphill battle. But if you can get there, Black Mage
At
can
least
be
it
really good.
simplifies optimal times to use guard.
Yeah. Usually the second somebody shows up and starts punching you in the face. So that's Black Mage. Summoner. Summoner is the bipolar child of rankings in Crystalline Conflict for how good it is. It is in a normal map, on the normal map with no obstacles, or on the wind map with the tornadoes and the little feathers that give you the limit break boost. Summoners aren't very good. They're incredibly map dependent. How?
Strength yourself.
Oh, strong. However, on the bomb map and on the new map, the one at Doma Castle or whatever, with all the money and the robots, summoners are nearly busted in how good they can perform because they have a instant cast AoE root. So if the map has a whole bunch of random one shot mechanics everywhere that the summoner can just root people in, the summoner has free kills all over the place. If the map doesn't, the summoner just has a root, which, while good, is nothing groundbreaking, and there are better utility options. And while their damage is fairly good, if you can drop Bahamut on the point and hit everybody on the enemy team with it, you can sometimes swing fights in your team's favor and turn things around. They just don't have the same kind of oomph or burst on or utility on a map that doesn't have lethal crap everywhere that you can stick people in that some other classes do. So good, but highly map dependent. Red Mage. Red Mage has two modes, and it's kind of complicated how its class thing works. With you can turn on black mode or white mode. So downtown Atlanta and South Georgia, and most people, well, they don't want to be poor and from downtown Atlanta, so they go with white mode.
Yeah, they don't want to be in the projects.
Yeah. So white mode comes with an AoE silence, which, as I mentioned before, is the best type of CC out there because it makes people behave stupidly because they think they have access to their buttons when they don't. Silence is very hard to notice it hitting you, and you will just get yourself killed a lot of times when you get silenced. And Red Mage is usually the culprit for it. And yeah, they have a lot of team buffing utility with a bunch of their stuff, but their finisher does have a substantial amount of burst on it, so they're not slouching in the damage department either. The only problem is it takes forever to ramp up to that very end of your combo, and you're still a squishy caster with very little in the way of defensives, so you need to pick your time to go in. And while you can swing a fight, your burst is only really going to realistically hit one person and kill him. So you're not going to be able to do any Deathlink chains, and you're not going to be able to do any, big Dragoon dives, or you're not going to get the full enemy stuns and disruption of a warrior, or stuff like that. But they're totally passable and workable in PvP, and a red mage that knows what they're doing will you won't notice it, but they will be the one that makes the enemy team. You'll go, why were they running into us so much? Because they were silenced all the time and didn't know they didn't have their abilities, and that they couldn't heal either. So that's red mage. It's all the casters get somewhere in the B plus, B minus, and summoner gets and loses points based on what map you're playing. And that's my opinion of the classes in PvP. So the last thing while we're clearing out this floor set I can talk about for PvP to keep things stretching is I'll probably call it after this floor set, is PvP in general and tips how to save yourself some headaches by getting these in your head now and learning them before you start. Like we mentioned earlier, pushing the point, you generally want to have somebody trying to push it or contest it at all times, but it doesn't always have to be you, and there are perfectly good reasons to get away from the crystal. This is not Overwatch. The sole objective of the game may be to push the little cart, but there are a lot of bonuses like damage ups, potions you can deny, squishy targets you can get out of a fight that all require you to be off of a point to go deal with or collect or whatever. And so you don't need to marry yourself to the point, but be sure it isn't neglected either. Early on you'll have teams of both stripes, ones that want to sit on the point with everybody, and ones that are just don't know the point exists, and you need to find where you need to be because your team is either putting too much or too little emphasis on the point, and that's a balancing act you'll figure out as you play.
But I want to farm kills in mid.
I mean, that can be fine. Every kill makes them take longer to respawn, so that's another thing. Don't die. If you have to take the time to back out of a fight and go and use a little potion to get all your mana back, do it. Don't die because you don't. It may even look on paper like, oh, well, the res is only 10 seconds, and it would take me a full like 12 to go out and potion and then run all the way back in and get back in the fight. No, because the run back from base and the momentum swing is too big for when you die, and every time you die, it takes longer and longer to come back. And there will be a team fight where you will probably die. I usually die one time a match on a good match going, and I may be like 8-16-1, but there's still a point when I die, and you need that time as low as possible so that after any big swingy ultimates from the enemy team come and really wreck you, you want to get back in there and back and able to harass them and pull people away from the point or do whatever you need to do faster. So avoiding death is always preferable because if you have to run away in potion, staying there and dying ain't a better ain't it doesn't help you in the future. You want your res timer as low as possible.
Right.
What's up last? Uh with the with PvP. I feel like there was something else I could talk about. Stretch. Oh, I did have my auto attack on. It doesn't hit very hard.
It's you on strength then.
Learn when to heal and guard, and remember to use all of your mana, and learn the rate it regens at, because you want to try and have most or all of your mana back between big fights, and learn when to chase somebody down and when not to. This is different for every class and how deep you can go, but finding that sweet spot for your class is very experience based, and you want to recognize it as soon as you can. And don't get baited by thinking you're tankier than you actually are. Ninja used to be nigh unkillable, and now we are a lot squishier. They kept nerfing us, and they keep nerfing us. So my perception on this point gets skewed a lot, and I will not survive situations I thought I would be fine in. Remember that you're not as tanky in frontlines if you play a melee, because in frontlines melee get a passive buff that I don't even know if it shows up on the character buff list. That just reduces their damage taken by a flat percentage. Otherwise, they would just get liquefied. So they have a flat damage taken buff. While in frontlines, you do not have that in crystalline conflict. So if you play melee, you're going to die much faster than you're used to if you've only done frontlines. Yeah, know what your enemy classes do. Go look up their abilities or memorize what the types of problems they're causing at the very least. And in general, just do not mark targets. Do not ever mark targets. This is a dumb idea in PvP in Crystalline Conflict because of the rapidly changing nature of the game board. The priority target can switch at a moment's notice. Sometimes it is the correct answer to attack the paladin. Please do not.
Yeah, but it's way too dangerous to induce tunnel vision in your entire team.
Yeah, and what you will do is you will distract people, and I know I get distracted by it, even though I know it's not there, or I know I should ignore it, by the dude that's put the one marker over the black mage and left it there the whole match. Do not do this. It is incredibly obnoxious. Don't emote spam, and just know sometimes you're gonna get a retarded team. Like some people are just really dumb, and sometimes you can tell right away this your team has no business winning this match, and that you're probably gonna lose, and there'll be nothing you can do about it. So try not to get frustrated with it, and just keep plugging away at it. But yeah, Crystalline Conflict's a lot of fun, and that's the state of the nation as far as classes go, and what I've thought of it so far. You had anything to add to my little PvP spree? I think I've
Not
stretched
really,
this
since
more than
I usually
as far as I thought I could get away with.
I usually avoid PvP because it gets in the way of other things that I want to be doing. So it is not to say I dislike it. I actually really enjoy crystalline conflict. The problem is that I just don't have the time for it. Like it's one of those game modes where sure it's PvP, so it has PvP related frustrations associated with it at times, but ultimately that's counterbalanced by the fact that matches are so quick. Like the frustration might be there, but it'll be gone in a few minutes.
Yeah, and the queue times, at least at prime time, like all PvP in this game, no PvP happens in the early morning. In the AM's Eastern time, PvP just doesn't happen. Like unless it is Saturday night, you just can't get a match. So you unfortunately need to do it at sometime between 2 p.m. and oh, what's about when it stops? Around midnight. 2 p.m. and midnight Eastern time is about when you need to do it. So your window where you can actually get matches is pretty low. At the start of a season and at the end of a season, it's different. I've been able to get matches instantly in the AMs then, but that's because people are rushing to get their grind done early or get their grind finished up. Hey, I finally got an artifact after
Hey, so did I.
70 floors, and I got one, and you got two.
Yep.
All right, let's call Palace there and call the show there. We had some newslets, but we're
No,
stretching.
they weren't really that important to be honest. But is both the casual and ranked queues populated?
Casual is significantly more populated than ranked, and you can find matches at weirder hours in casual, and the queues are usually faster if there's a queue at all. Sometimes casual will be packed with a specific class randomly, and you just got to play something else. But it's casual, so it's not like playing a different class is going to hurt you in any way. So so yeah, that's what the queues are like. Um, it is a lone activity, something you do when you don't have anybody else around or you just don't really feel like doing group content. Uh, so yeah. Hey, Odin's up somewhere in the shroud. No idea where. For the
Who
Shinter
is he today?
question. Or somebody will post the thing. I don't need any more Odin pieces. I've already got him done. I think we're going to go back to the house. Or I'm going to go back to the house and sign the show off.
I was just cracking my sacks.
So yeah, as usual, our our gameplay was probably terrible because I can't walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. But because it's Final Fantasy, it is something I can play it in air quotes and talk at the same time because gameplay at this point is all muscle memory. And even then, I still don't notice when we have buffs and I blow myself up with chess. Alrighty. Any closing comments before we get us out of here?
Not really. Hopefully Fern will be back next week. This week he had a last minute unavoidable work thing to do, so he had to bow out at the last moment, which is why we've got nothing prepared.
Yeah. And there was no news on top of everything else. So we stretched pretty good. We made it 3 hours, 3.5, 3 and 15. So over the average showtime. Although most of it was PvP talk. Uh, so alrighty.
I mean, you did a reasonable good job of selling it to me. Like it was enough to make me feel excited about the idea of playing PvP, except that I don't have the time to do so.
Yeah. Once you start, I can understand not wanting to get into it if you don't have time to sit down and really acclimatize to it because it's easier to process stuff if you play in batches of bulk so that you can take lessons you've learned and really nail them in and figure out what works for you a bit better. But if you just want to poke at it, super fast, takes like 2 minutes a match.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that I really, if I want to do it, I want to settle in and do it
Yeah,
because I don't really want to poke at it. I want to either not do it or do it properly. I guess, and as insofar as I can, like I'm really bad at PvP and MMOs these days. But you would never know that when I started World of Warcraft, I was primarily a PvPer. my ability to play PvP completely withered after WoW Vanilla, and I haven't really been able to get any good at it since. But I mean, if all it is casual, I don't mind doing that, and I quite like the False Monarchy set as far as it supplies some interesting pieces that I think work well on tanks. So I'm sort of interested in maybe going for that, but
Also, one
yeah,
of
I'll have to see.
the few full armor sets you can wear on healers.
Floppies.
Yeah. So, as you can see, here's my performance. Uh, Casual matches I think are lifetime. Ranked matches is definitely only this season. But counting all the stray matches I played throughout the start of this season and the two bursts I did in the last 3 days, I won 49 matches, and that got me to platinum in that time. Playing as ninja and attempting to carry, and succeeding a good chunk, succeeding more than it didn't happen, and yeah, I'm at platinum 4, the bottom of platinum. So I'm going to leave it there for this season probably. And next season, if I get another couple days where I just want to, I don't want to interact with anybody, I might try and swing for diamond, and we'll see how, if we can keep getting up there. So yeah, that's crystalline conflict, and that's uh that's all we got, folks. Hopefully we'll be back with a Fern next week and a proper show. We'll see you then. Sayonara. Bye bye.